Hi, everyone.
And we are live. Yay! So we have Veritariel King Gibson in the house. We have Sarah Wall, Mara Yomentie. That's beautiful. I have to look that up because I'm not that good in Elvish yet. Although with Luthien having a new app, that might help me.
Yeah,
And I know
she's
that I know that Draco's in the house too. He messaged me privately and said that he wasn't able to message in the live chat, and so we're hopefully going to be figuring that out. So we definitely have at least 3 people on today. And Dave, why don't you go ahead and introduce like what you're going to be talking about while I upload the actual document. And
okay.
for any of you that are curious, that are patrons, you guys have access to the downloads themselves. They will be in your back end of the Patreon post, but if you can't find it or you're having trouble, I will send you the Mega NZ link on Messenger if you guys need that. Okay, just message me if you need that. Okay. You can get it after the show because we're going to upload. Oh, Dave, are we going to be uploading the Excel document also today or just the Word document?
Probably just a Word document because
That's what I thought.
if
Okay,
they
I'm
do
just
want to
making
see the
sure that I
Excel,
pick up the right one.
yeah, if they do want to see the spreadsheet, they can just download the entire archive, and then everything will be there, and they can explore
Right.
as they wish to.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, so we are. Okay, I'm pulling them up right now. Okay, we are pulling up the Elven Moon names table. Oh. Okay, I must have extracted these already. Hang on. Here it is. The table
Okay.
explanation,
Right.
final. Okay. Um,
Yeah, the latest spreadsheet doesn't have the word final after it. It's
I
just
see.
Elven Moon Names
Yeah.
Table dot XLX.
Yeah. Which is totally fine. But they'll have access to that
Right.
and they don't have like the multiple copies that we have.
Right. Right.
Right? Because we had all these copies that went back and forth. So that's where
Well,
I
also
was
this table actually started with my friend Luthien, who Callan Turnigal mentioned earlier, who's doing an Elvish translation app, Elvish dictionary app, and it is actually started in my other group, IV, and so she helped me build this. But then the assignments of concepts and entities are somewhat different between TE and IV, so that's why there were a whole bunch of different versions of this table.
I see. Interesting. Okay. So I am getting ready right now to share the document. Did it pop up on the screen?
Let's see here. Yes, there it is.
Awesome. Yep. Okay, and you guys, okay, I'm using the cursors to move it up and
Mm-hmm.
down.
Yes, it's moving.
Okay, brilliant. It did it right. So excellent. We want to make sure that we're all good here to go. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch screens. Make sure. Oh yeah, looks great. Let me see which is a better view though. Us on the bottom or us on the side. So us on the side, ooh, I know what I might be able to do. I might be able to go to Word and enlarge the document so that it fills up the screen a little bit more.
Right.
Yeah. I am looking for the viewing function here. View.
It's probably under view. Yeah,
and it's Zoom 100%. Yeah. So we can.
I believe if you click that, you'll probably.
Yeah, we can go.
Yeah.
Oh, 200%. Let's see what happens. Oh dang! I like that. Because we can read it and then so can everybody watching the video. Right. And then but that now I'll have to put us at the bottom. So let me do that in the other window. Oh no, it looks good. Okay, how about this, Dave?
You could
Do you
probably set
like
it
it
to.
down here, or do you want us on the side, like out of the way?
The side is okay because
Okay,
now
I'll
that
leave it like this.
at
This will be
200%,
great. Muriel's here. Yay!
at
Hi,
200%,
Muriel.
it's large enough to read. For people who are viewing this video. So
Okay. Okay. Draco says he's watching, and he's gonna have to put his comments in at the end of the video if he has any. Which, now Draco, since you can see me on Messenger, I will keep my eye on my Messenger icon, so you can message me if you have something, and I'll see that a message has
yeah.
come in. So you could do it that way also. Hopefully at some point it'll let you in. I'm not sure what's going on with I don't know. I did try changing the settings so that we wouldn't get a lot of spam comments, like before, when just anybody could comment, that was not a subscriber. They would just like put their their spam links or whatever. So he says, okay, that sounds good. So okay, I'm gonna downsize here.
Yeah, I remember that.
Sarah Wall, and she says she liked it on the side. We're gonna do it on the side.
We had
nice. Appreciate that.
A little while back, I think it was not the last video, but the one before. I think it was the one about the differences between elves and fairies. We had spammers in there, that would just pop in selling their penis might ears or whatever.
Or whatever. Yeah, very appropriate for our audience. They're not like looking around, but I guess that they don't care about their market. But okay. So Dave, let's talk about why this was necessary, because we're actually going to we wanted to put together a book of rituals, but in order to do that, we needed to actually introduce the calendar that we're working with first. Now, we implemented it back in April of 2021, when Dave had originally started doing this this research. And Vera says that she's not a subscriber, so that's very interesting. Okay, but you're able to comment. Okay, I'm not sure what's going on there. YouTube, something is going on with YouTube apparently, that it's blocking Draco, who actually is a subscriber, and allowing Vera, who is not a subscriber, which, by the way, I recommend you subscribe. Okay, but I'm not really sure like how this is working right now. So we'll go ahead and get started. I just wanted to tell you guys that we wanted to put a book into the works, but in order to do the book, we needed to do the calendar. And only even until recently did we figure out what to do with the extra moon. That in the past, we had handled it with Isil Maiaron, which was the moon of the Maiar. And then we kind of lumped the fairy beings into that whole thing. And we needed to figure out not only what to call it because of like Dave's research, but also now what are we going to do with the fairies and the Maiar? So we're going to update you guys with that today, but I'll let Dave do it because it's very step by step. And I love it. I read it last night for the first time, the final draft. It's amazing. Okay. It's amazing. So, yes, Vera, I believe you do pay the $10 monthly. I think that everything is fine. I did notice everybody on Patreon last night. And if you didn't get it, just go ahead and message me. Okay. Message me on Messenger or in Instagram, and I'll make sure that you get whatever it is that we're going to get to you. But right now you can just read what we have on the screen, and I'll be scrolling it and everything will be fine. And that Flat Fellow favorite channel, thank you. We're good with that. Okay. Dave, take it away.
Okay, well, the reason why we prior to this time, prior to 2021 or late 2020, I forget exactly when I came up with this. I think it was very early 2021. Prior to this time, we'd always been using the Encyclopedia of Artists JavaScript calendar to basically to see when the it's not actually the and the reason I call this the moon name table is because the calendar function of a year is not really the same as determining the name of the moon in a month. Now, of course, the word month goes back to moon in its root word, but um,
Yeah. In
uh,
English. Yeah.
yeah. But so what we really needed was a name, a way to determine the elven name of each moon of each month, like in uh, the sort of conglomeration of moon names that you may be more familiar with. There's a strawberry moon, there's a wolf moon, hunter's moon, stuff like that that come from different cultures. But this being a token-based path, we wanted to determine the elven name for each moon.
Right. Right.
So
And we had been using the elven names according to the Numenorian Steward's Reckoning, but
right,
the Encyclopedia of Arda calculated the months differently than how Dave had figured out the calculations. And early on, when we were talking about this, I wanted to make sure that we weren't, like, if you will, going against the legendarium. I had the original idea that the Encyclopedia of Arda was legendarium specific, and that's why we were using it. And so when the changes came about, I'm like, wait a minute, like, is it going to mess up everything? And when Dave showed me how the actual, like, through his research, which he's going to lead you in very good detail in this document, okay, not only are we now independent of not needing the Encyclopedia of Arda's interactive calendar, all you have to do is look at the day, and the day that the month starts and the day that the month ends, and it's like that every year now. And it's so much easier. We're going to be taking into leap year the way that the elves did. By every 12 years, we're going to have a 6-day long Enderi. That's what the elves did. So that's how we're going to handle the leap year part. But they didn't even have a solution for leap year in Encyclopedia of Arda. Is that correct, Dave?
yeah, they just basically glossed over it. If there was a leap year,
Yeah.
it just it would like the February 29th just basically it would either repeat or it wouldn't show up. I don't remember exactly, but it didn't actually track it. It just basically glossed over it.
Yeah, I don't think that it was included at all. Like, if
Right.
you did a drop down menu and you went to Gregorian date so that you could translate it, I think it ended at February 28th and then went right to March 1st.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
what
So it was like, kind of like, okay, what do we do with this? And
yeah, that's right. I remember looking at the JavaScript code now. Yeah, if it was an actual leap year and there was a February 29th, it would just not display it.
it would just, like, you're in a free day, like, it's outside of time, kind of thing. And so we thought that it would be better to have a, better calendar. Now, the other thing that happened is that it would be a heck of a lot more rare in order to have 2 full moons within the same month. Okay. And by the way, on the same note, 2 dark moons on the same month and 2 newly waxing crescent moons on the same month. But this gets overly complicated. We're going to just stick with the full moon for right now, because that's, in the legendarium talks about full moon. Okay. And it's kind of complex. We introduced this the dark moon and the newly waxing crescent moon recently, and we are at the current time kind of we're recognizing it, but we're going to be more inwardly and contemplative rather than coming together as a community, where, like, we come together as a community with the e-seals, okay, which we're actually going to be, doing the next e-seal pretty soon. So guys, staying tuned for that. But we're going to have a lot less of the double moon. So Dave and I were talking about, like, we have to have something that isn't like so like that we never acknowledge it, like, but that it's always acknowledged. So we needed a better way to do that. And he had the idea of acknowledging the flame imperishable because it is, quote, behind all things. Okay. So it's always there, regardless of how irregular the cycles might be. And I thought, wow, that's a great idea.
Exactly.
However, what are we going to do with the Maiar, and what are we going to do with the fairy beings that were talked about in the Lost Tales? And so we have the solution. So stay tuned. Okay. It's going to be great.
Okay. I'll go through this. I'm not going to read every paragraph probably, because people who are interested can download the archive and read
Yeah.
it. But I am going to read the first few paragraphs because it
I think
explains.
that it's very introductory and it's
Yeah.
a great idea. And if you want me to help you, and we'll change
Right.
it up a little bit if you get tired.
Okay. Now, within the Legendarium corpus, all the texts that compose Tolkien's writings, there are a number of different calendars, and there are associated with different cultures. What's known as the Elven calendar, or what we call the Elven calendar, is technically known as the calendar of Imladris, which is the Elven name for Rivendell, and
Right.
that's the only Elven calendar as such that's described within the Legendarium. I mean, there are mentions of elves observe the moon and stars very closely and make corrections, but there's, aside from the calendar of Imladris, there's no direct specific delineation of what they're doing.
Right.
So the calendar of Imladris is what we use, and for anyone, any Tolkien fan, or whatever you want to call them, Tolkien interest person who has tried to make an Elven calendar, that's the only thing they really have to go on.
Right. Right.
So
and it's seasonal, so of course
right,
that's kind of a giveaway.
right, yeah. Rather than the Gregorian method of doing it, where each year is split into 4 equal parts, the Elven year is split into 6 parts, and they're not equal. The summer and
Right.
winter seasons are longer, and you have autumn. Basically it starts with spring, and then summer, and then Yevye, which is basically maturation, and then
Yeah.
and then
And I mean, it's the elven autumn,
right,
but in a way, like, what we think of as autumn is actually the fading season.
yeah.
Yeah.
Maturation would be like basically like late late summer, August,
Right.
early,
The
early
peak of
September.
harvest, like the
Yeah,
peak of the first of the harvest season.
right. And
Yeah.
then after that would be uh, you know then after that autumn, then Endari comes in, which is the middle days, because the year starts in the spring, so the middle days are at the end of September, and then comes actual fading, which is leaf fall, and then after that comes winter, and then there's a season after that called stirring, and then the new year starts again. So
Yeah.
that's a very abbreviated version of what goes on.
Yeah.
Um, but of course, in each of those seasons, there are moons, and the elves recognize moons too. And the reason why originally, when TE was formed, and still in IV, my other group, uh, the reason why we didn't specifically honor like dark moons and things like that is there's no specific mention of any ritual done on dark moons. Full moons, yes, that the
Yes.
elves recognize them, but not with dark moons. There's a linguistic reference to Ku, which means crescent, so it refers to the crescent moon.
Right. So
So that
that's
would be,
why we have the newly waxing crescent
yeah.
moon. Yeah.
But aside from that, there just aren't the data just isn't there. So that's why I didn't do
Yeah.
it. But Lisa, being astrologer, the dark moon is more important than it is to a shaman
Well,
like me.
I wouldn't say more important. I
So,
would say as important,
right,
meaning the new moon. Now,
right,
what I found fascinating was that there was no mention of new moons, meaning the actual conjunction, the halfway point between when it goes dark and when it's visible again. So there's a 3-day period, so about a day and a half on the dark moon going to the new moon, and then the new moon going to the newly waxing crescent. That it's a day and a half to one and a day and a half, and that's approximate because the moon changes speed. So
right,
sometimes it's shorter, sometimes it's faster, but that's an average speed. And Dave knows this from astronomy also.
right.
But so there was no mentions in the entire legendarium of the elves, or even actually any of the peoples, if I'm not mistaken. But definitely the elves did not mention new moons. And so what we did was, in order to do that, is we have kind of a combination of 3 days, like where we notice that the moon disappears. Okay. And that's when it goes dark. And so that's the moron. And at least that there is language about, that dying away, like the moon fading out. Okay. And then the coup, which Dave brings up, is when it's visible again. So it literally, there's 3 days in between when it goes dark and when it goes visible again. And if you would like for your own practices to do new moon activities on, like according to the Gregorian calendar, we are totally fine with that. But we're not doing rituals per se, like at least as a community. We tend to look at that time more as an inward time in order to plant seed, like, to let go of things during the dark moon and plant seeds during the new moon and waxing moon. And so the full moon is like kind of a culmination, and that's when we have the community gather together, and that's why we're doing the e-seals more at this time. So I just thought that I would make that clear to anybody of, why are you doing only full moons and not the other ones? I just wanted to let you guys know that.
And I think the reason why new moons in the astronomical sense of, your geometric center of that the basically the center of the moon and the center of the sun line up in right ascension is because in most ancient cultures that I know about, the new moon was actually not the dark phase, but the very first thin crescent, the thinnest crescent you can see, much like the Islamic calendar still reckons by.
Yes.
So that's why I think it was done. But Tolkien never specifically said why he didn't mention a dark moon, so we only have inference to go by.
Right.
In that respect.
Right. And the way that I like to look at it is, so most of the moons match a particular Vala, or at least, an energy or a being or a thing that is very resonant with the cosmology of the elven world, if you will. And so I like to look at it as that the newly waxing moon, because Tolkien had looked at the moon and actually a lot of the bodies like as if they were ships, okay, sailing in the sky, right? Like Erendiel is, it's Vingalote, the foam flower ship, sailing with Erendiel with the Silmaril on his brow, okay, which we see, and then his wife Elwing, right? And so when we talk about, the moon, which is steered by the Maya Telion, and then Anar is the sun, which is steered by the Maya Arian. I like to think about those kind of like being boats, if you will. And so they kind of like get launched, on the new moon, they get launched, and then they reach their height or their furthest place away from each other at the full moon. And then when they come back, the dark moon is like when they change off, like they would, like, if you will, get off the ship. Okay. And then 3 days later, the new energy is associated with that ship. So we look at it that way. Now, In practice, though, oftentimes the dark moon and the new moon are in the same month, so it would literally, that whole thing doesn't work with that, unfortunately, because I thought it would be really cool for it like to launch and then just come back around and then get off the ship at the Moron and then the Queron start the new one. But it doesn't work that way in the calendar. Okay, we just could only do so much. So we are only doing the Morons and the Querons in whatever like month that they exist in. They may straddle like one of the borders at some point, and that would be awesome. But right now we're just going to honor those like in the month that they appear in. So I wanted to be also very clear about that. But we're not really in a space where we're celebrating those. But some of you, do work with some of the, energies of these. And so I'm being really clear about what we're doing. And certainly, I mean, I suppose that in your personal practice, you can work with any Vala that you would want, even if it's not their month, or what have you. But I just wanted to let you guys know about that.
Okay. I think I'll start by reading the first few paragraphs because I do.
Okay, let me scroll back up.
Okay, we've already.
I am aligned.
Okay.
Hang on. Okay, brilliant.
We've already explained some of it, but so I'll just go through
Okay.
this relatively quickly. This paper presents my rationale for not attempting to use the legendarium calendars of the King's Reckoning, the Numenorean system, Steward's Reckoning, which came later, New Reckoning, or the Shire calendar to determine our Elven month names. Rather, I wish to create an easy method to tell the Elven name of each lunar month, using the published date of the full moon in any given month on the Gregorian calendar in common use throughout the world. Doing so puts the power of determination squarely in the mind of the user, should they wish to follow the system, and does not rely on the existence of any external site, such as the Encyclopedia of Arda's interactive calendar, nor the need to bog themselves down in arcana, such as what age of Middle Earth this may be, because a lot of people have different ideas of what they use a different start date and say this is like the 6th age, or some of them say the 9th age,
right,
or whatever.
right.
So
yeah.
you don't have to worry about that with this system, because most of those dates, because they're external to the legendarium, they're the person's best guess at what age this may be. And then how do you define an age? It's the whole problem of defining a metric. From my point of view, when you do that, you're just bogging yourself down. So
yeah.
Since Tia Elderlev is an Elven-centric spiritual path, a seemingly obvious solution to this problem would be to use whatever reckoning of time the Quenya used to determine this. The Quenya is the in legendarium word for the elves as a species. Immediately, however, we run into a problem. The only Elven calendar we have evidence for in the legendarium, the calendar of Imladris, does not reckon time in cycles of the moon, the literal meaning of the word month, at all. Instead, it reckons time in 6 seasonal periods per solar year: Tuele, Laire, Yavie, Quele, Hrive, and Kure, meaning spring, summer, autumn, or maturation, fading, winter, and stirring. In light of this fact, we can then look at other legendarium cultures to see if they reckon in months in a way that is compatible with the Elven seasons just mentioned. The closest is the King's Reckonings, with the month names in Quenya. These, along with their transliterated English glosses of the origin of the month names that Tia Elderlev uses. The only difference is that we prefix the Quenya word Isla to each name to designate what a given month is, literally the moon of, meaning in English, because we celebrate lunar cycles. Like what that's saying is we do Isil, like this would be Isil Sulime, because it's the moon of winds. So
exactly. And by the way, Isil meaning that we measure it from full moon to full moon. Right, on that one, not new moon to new moon. So just to be clear about that.
And then one may ask at this point, why not just use the King's Reckoning? The primary reason for not doing so is that one would have to develop an algorithm to translate between the Gregorian calendar months, which everyone else uses, and the given token calendar. Although other people have done this, the Encyclopedia of Arda, for example, does this in its interactive calendar using JavaScript. Some problems will immediately arise in designing the conversion algorithm. The most serious of these is that not all of Tolkien's calendrical descriptions are entirely consistent with one another. To illustrate this, I shall quote below a personal email between my friend Luthien, the webmaster of Isolunte Valian, and the webmaster of the Encyclopedia of Arda. Now here it is. It is
And here is this quote
from Mark Fisher. I'm not surprised that you haven't found a clear-cut answer. The various lines of evidence are indeed difficult to reconcile. The conversion of the calendar page is the best conversion I could come up with, although it would be perfectly possible to construct alternative systems that also fit the evidence. I've actually posted an article on the site that explains the rationale behind the calendar conversion I use. You can find that here, and then there's
here's the link if you guys need it. It's glyphweb.com/arda/FAQ/calendars.html.
Yeah, it's about a page and a half, I think, as I remember it, that he writes there.
Yeah.
Possibly two. That at least sums up the details we have from Tolkien himself about the conversion, though things are complicated by the fact that not all of his points are entirely consistent with one another. Nonetheless, I hope that's helpful. Kind regards, Mark Fisher. And and then I go on. It seems that Tolkien made considerable changes in the calendrical systems at the time of the composition of The Lord of the Rings. They came under increasing time pressure from his publisher to submit the manuscripts, and eventually did so before they were in a final state. You can read about that here, and I gave a link to
and the links are all in the footnotes in the document,
right.
If you guys need that. So patrons, you can download the documents from your Patreon or message me on Mega, and I'll give you the Mega NZ link on Messenger or your email or Instagram or wherever you need it.
Now, do you want me to go through my first false start here when I was using the lunar synodic period? I mean, I can read through it, but
okay, you could read. I think that some people. So I'm sure that there are some people here that are into astronomy. Mm-hmm. And I do remember. Now, I'm not sure if they're a patron anymore, but I do remember that we had some of our patrons who were very interested in how the cycles of astronomy relate to the legendarium and the calendar, therefore. So right. I think that it would be okay to read this part, and okay. Even though I'm not an astronomer, I'm an astrologer, but I understood what you were talking about, so right. I think that it was great.
So what to do? In other words, how do we solve this problem? It seemed to me that the most elegant and pragmatic solution was to use atrometrics to solve the problem. That avoids the problems inherent in translation algorithms because we focus on a lunar synodic month, or the time in days it takes for the moon to complete one cycle of its phases of illumination. In other words, from full moon to full moon, or from quarter moon to, from first quarter
right.
to first
whatever
quarter.
The cycle is.
Yeah. At this point in the history of Arda Earth, this has a mean value of 29.53059 days, or 29 days, 12 hours, and 44 minutes. That's the mean, but the true length varies throughout the year from a minimum of about 29 days, 6 hours, 30 minutes to a maximum of approximately 29 days, 20 hours, depending also on the given year due to orbital mechanics. These variations were greater in the past and will diminish in the future, and that link goes to a extremely technical. The EndNote 5 goes to an extremely technical article. You would really have to know calculus to really understand what the author is saying, but it is true. The variations were greater in the past. So in the past, there was even greater variation. Like at the time of the tales in the Legendarium, there was greater variation in the length of the lunar month than there is now, and it's gradually evening out because the moon is slowly getting further and further away from the Earth. It's being spun off. Now that'll take a very long time before it eventually stops doing that and achieves a circular orbit around the Earth. In fact, it'll take about 1 billion years, but nevertheless, it is slowly moving outward.
Wow. I didn't realize that it was like in a sense like regulating, meaning that it would be less variation.
Yeah.
So that means, to me, that means that that's even less of a So as time goes on, there's going to be less of an opportunity for that second moon
Right,
to
and
pop
also
in on a month. Yeah.
and as a result of that, because the momentum is throwing the moon gradually outward, our day, our rotational period of the Earth is gradually slowing down. So our day length will increase. You know,
Wow.
it'll increase. I think the maximum I read was when it finally reaches its stable point, it'll be something like 54 hours long or something like that. But that'll be a very long,
Wow.
long time in the future. So
Boy, for all those people wishing that there were more hours in a
yeah,
day,
yeah.
hang around for a while. Oh, very interesting. Um, so that is very cool. So that's a footnote 5 for those with the document after the video and you're watching the replay. That link will explain about that change. So we'll
And
go ahead and continue, Dave.
right, okay. Since we already know the Gregorian month in which Yastare, that is the Elven New Year, falls, March, we then make March Isus Lime our starting month. And the reason I'm going to go to that end note there, end note 6, because there's evidence for that. It's not, I'm not just pulling it out of nothing.
Okay.
Just a second here. Let me. There we go. Okay. Tuele means spring in Quenya, which is a seasonal division immediately after Yastare, and then there's an actual quotation. Yastare, the day immediately before Tuele, Lord of the Rings, Appendix D. Also, the original Hobbit calendar from the Lord of the Ring draft texts, published in the Peoples of Middle-earth, History of Middle-earth, Volume 12, gave many of its characteristics to the other Middle-earth calendars composed shortly thereafter, as explained in that book by Christopher Tolkien. In that text, it is stated that the wild hobbits were said to have begun their year with a new moon nearest the beginning of spring. Taken together, these point to a start date near the vernal equinox, which is in March on the Gregorian calendar.
Okay.
And so that's why there's a spring start
Okay.
date. There's a lot of evidence for it. So
Okay. Thank you. And I'll scroll back up to where we were.
right. I'm just trying to get back to myself. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
scrolling. I'm sorry. I'm trying to help you here.
The next consideration is how many days each individual month should contain. Since the mean lunar synodic month length, 29.53059 days, has 30 days when rounded to the nearest whole number, and the fact that the stewards reckoning use 30 days for each month rather than varying them as the Gregorian calendar does, would make practical sense to make all the months 30 days in length, as this is intended to be a perpetual elven moon name selection table rather than a primary calendar to be valid in any year. That is to say, where the main purpose of this table is to select the proper name for the moon.
For that full moon.
Yeah.
Whenever it occurs. And then we just look at the calendar and say, oh, it's between this date and this date. And
because if you're actually, if somebody wanted to get real anal retentive and do it exactly as the calendar of Imladris did, you would have to calculate everything yourself. You would have to determine a start date. You would have to determine the vernal equinox. You would have to determine, you would have to do all that stuff yourself. You wouldn't really have recourse to the Gregorian calendar that everyone else uses, because you'd have to do that primary clinical function yourself.
Well, and then how would it? So, like somebody could do that, but then what would they compare it to? When, how would they say, oh, well, that.
Exactly.
They could argue and say that's not what Imladris did, because it's so speculative. Like,
exactly. And you would
yeah.
have to choose a start date for your calendar, and that's pretty much wholly arbitrary, because it's whatever you think it would be, and that's your start date for whatever year, but there's no reason. In other words, some people, I've seen some calendars that started on the year 2000, but the year 2000 is just a millennial turnover point on the Gregorian calendar. So,
right.
Why not use?
It doesn't really have any astronomical resonance.
Right.
Yeah.
It would make more astronomical sense to use the Mayan calendar because it was
Right.
based on the cycles of Venus, so
Right.
there you are.
Right. Yes. Which, by the way, they did use Venus as a timekeeper until the invention of the atomic clock, even in the Western world. So, not a bad
Right,
observation there.
yeah. Okay, and right now I did a little discursive thing there, or okay. So we're using 30 days. Okay, one attempts to do this using 30 whole days for each month, though, when we're running into a problem. When each month is 30 days long, the calendar then ends on March 7th instead of our start date of March 1st, which that is to say we have 6 days too many. When I first spotted this problem, I had the idea to research the lunar synodic period to see if there were some months in each solar year that were shorter than the mean lunar synodic month. I discovered that, in fact, there are. Let's see. July and the 2 months either side of it, see attached on the length of the lunar synodic month white
Okay.
paper, are those months when it's the lunar synodic months is shorter than average. So we have June, July, August, in other words. And then I
Okay.
created a calendar in which each month has 30 days except June, July, and August, near the lunar synodic period minimal values, which had 28 days, thus eliminating the 6-day overage.
I
This was,
see.
this was closer to what I wanted, but I still had the problem of about a day overlap at the end of the year, as well as a 28-day months being a bit too short when compared to the minimum value for the synodic month. I then tried the table using the actual mean lunar synodic month value, 29.53059, for the days it should be adding, starting with 31st, the last day of March, minus 29.53059 equals 1.46941, or March 1st, 1 day, 11 hours, 50 minutes, 57 seconds. This was very close, but I still had some hours of overage. At this point, I needed a new pair of eyes for this problem. So I showed it to my friend Luthien, made the point that it wasn't necessary to be concerned with the lunar synodic period at all, as this is a separate calculation often printed on the Gregorian calendars, but is not a part of their timekeeping function. In other words, on the Gregorian calendar, you're the moons are there, but that's not a part of their actual timekeeping function. In fact, the timekeeping function now is done with a cesium maser clock, but in prior times it was done basically by taking the point of the vernal equinox and then making small corrections to each year, and then of course each day was an unknown length, so then everything worked out more or less. There was still a little bit of either undercount or overcount, but it was close enough for the people in the pre industrial ages to work with. So anyway, okay, let's see here. Now, see, this is, I know this is getting a bit complex, but okay.
But it gets simpler.
Yeah.
It gets simpler.
Right. Made the point wasn't necessarily concerned with the lunar synodic period at all, as it's a separate calculation often printed on Gregorian calendars, but is not a part of their timekeeping function. Since our Elven moon names table is not a calendar as such, but rather a name chooser, and it's based on the Gregorian calendar for its count of days, all we need to do is divide the solar year into 12 parts. 365.25 divided by 12 equals 30.4375, and the reason it's 365.25 divided by 12, so we don't have a repeating decimal. So we can say that
Right.
length is exactly 30.4375, and use that value for the range of each ISIL name. When we do it this way, everything falls into place with no overlap. The early experiments are included in the attached archive for the curious. In other words, you can look and see what I did.
Well, I mean, no, I'm good with the new solution of taking 365.25, dividing it by 12, and creating it that way. And I realize that we still have occasionally, even with this new system, occasionally we're going to still have a 13th full, like the second full moon within the time period of one of those 12 parts. Okay,
Yeah,
so
and the reason
that'll
for
come.
that is because the lunar synodic period, now it does vary. Remember, the mean value
Yes,
is
well, it's 20. We just
right,
discussed that. It was
right,
29 point
right.
something days instead of 30 point something days.
And because the set period is 30.4375, there is a small but real chance that, and eventually it will happen, that you'll have two moons in one of these 30.4375 day periods. And so that's the thing that I was trying to get rid of with my early experiments, but it just didn't work out. And dividing in the year into 12 parts, and this is how many days you have, is the most elegant way to do it. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would, if I were you, I would hire you to get rid of the Gregorian calendar. I think that your calendar is even better.
anyway,
But, that's
I go
me.
on here. Constructing our elven moon names table in this manner makes it easy to tell in which month name of a given lunar event, be it full moon, dark moon, or crescent, falls, and thus preserves the feeling or the energy of that month. In this context, while drafting this paper, I came upon a site, and the link is in there. You would have to click it, but it postulates many different start dates for Yastari, and thus alters the feeling of each month in consequence. We and Tia Eldaleva believe that this such second guessing just introduces needless complexity. Here are a few reasons which lie behind that opinion. And these are things that I discovered when I was researching all this stuff. In the spring, if the moon is full, it rises as the sun's twilight glow is quickly fading and seems to shoot up the sky. As the ecliptic, which the moon mostly follows, it's much more sharply inclined relative to the eastern horizon near sunset in springtime than it is at any other time of year. And is at its greatest most vertical near the vernal equinox. In fact, the first quarter moon will reach a point nearest the zenith, straight overhead, if it rises on the vernal equinox. Since the Quende had a Sindarin term for the crescent lunar phase, Ku, and since the rising crescent phase would also exhibit this behavior near the vernal equinox, it's probable that this visual scene was for them a primal one for this time of year, as the rising of Orion and Sirius, Menelmokar and Helluin are for the awakening of the Quende in late autumn, which we in Tia Eldaleva call Quivere Quendiva. That's our main winter holiday, start of winter holiday.
Yeah, that's the start of winter. Yep.
Additionally, if there's a new moon on the vernal equinox, see EndNote 6, then the rising crescent phase will display over the week following, which is another probable reason for the Yastari occurring about a week after the vernal equinox rather than on that day. So they seem to be concerned with the crescent or rising crescent phase appearing in the east as the sun was setting in the west. So I go on a little bit to describe those conditions in the next paragraph here.
I think that's so great. I'll tell you why in a minute. Go ahead and read the paragraph, but it's wonderful.
Under the proper conditions, sometimes the setting sun and rising full moon can actually be seen in the sky together for a few minutes. The visual effect, then, is of the moon in a dark sky eastwards, either somewhat removed to the sunset glow or near the eastern horizon itself, joined by a few bright twinkling stars, whereas westwards the sun is setting, perhaps joined by bright Earendel, Venus, or Alcarinque, Jupiter. As Sam Gamgee observed, elves are all for moon and stars, and I can't think of a natural event that illustrates that concept better than this.
Yeah, and I was just going to say that even as an astrologer, with knowing that the elves were recognizing the Ku, meaning the newly waxing crescent in the lunar cycle rather than the new moon, it makes sense that they would recognize the waxing of that, of their Yastari holiday after the equinox for the same reason, because it's exact on that equinox, but they really feel that pole waxing.
Right.
So in a way it's resonant even with their own moon cycle, how they would do Yastari. That's just what I think.
Right. I think so also. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just think that there's a beauty in that, and it's very consistent, and it's one that isn't really obvious until you started doing all of this.
Right, right. Yeah, I didn't actually. I wasn't aware of a lot of these things I read in the prior two paragraphs until I started researching a lot of this, and then everything fell into place. As I'm like, wait a minute, this goes here, that goes there. It looks this way. Wow. I
Yeah. Well, and a couple of the other things, these were in your prior calendar documents,
mhm.
wherein you discovered that the Pleiades had culminated, at the exact day that the winter starts, Qui Verre Quindiva,
Right, right.
recognizing the Silmarillion story, and then literally conjunct the sun is conjunct that star system, the same one that you see in the winter, is literally it's making that conjunction at Nos Na Lothion.
Right,
Perfect.
right, right.
The start of summer. So I mean, absolutely, the elves had a resonance with the stars. There is no question about that.
And then now I'm going to get into, well, how do we honor the Fey beings in the new system? So that's what it's going to segue
Okay.
into.
Okay.
And okay, so about
I'm
two
excited.
months, about 2 months later, in other words, about 2 months after the New Year, Elven New Year, about 2 months later is the Magyali of Nos Na Lothian, May 22nd. This marks the beginning of the long summer season, Laire, and is also the season of Tinfangelion. Tinfangelion, who still the moon enchants on summer nights of June and kindles the pale firstling star, and that's an actual part of a poem from the Lay of Leithian, which is a long, very long poem about Luthien, uh, of the Legendarium. And so then I go, I figured not too many people had heard of Tinfangelion. So who is Tinfangelion? He's a Fey spirit of the kind that sing amid the grass at morning and chant among the standing corn at eve, which people who have seen the differences between the elves and the Fey video will probably recognize that statement. And
Yeah.
and and who came with the Velia Yavanna Pelurian when she and the other Valar first entered the world. The Book of Lost Tales has an account of him, which I think it is best to quote in full. The Book of Lost Tales is an early Tolkien work told from the point of view of a Viking seafarer called Ariel or Elfwine, which means elf friend, who, by chance, managed to find the straight road and so came to Tall Eressëa and became a guest of the Eldar there. He learned of them all the tales which we know as the Legendarium. In his account, Ariel says, Ariel told Vaire, it's a different Vaire, not the Vala, but an elven woman. Ariel told Vaire of the dream musics that he had heard, and she said that it was no dream music, but rather the flute of Timpenin, who the gnomes Nolor, Rumel, and Littleheart, and others of my house call Tinfang. She told him that the children called him Tinfang Warble, which is what Gelen means. It's like the warbling of a flute. And he played and danced in the summer dust for the joy at the first stars. At every note, a new one sparkles forth and glisters. The Nodole say that they come out too soon if Tinfang Warble plays, and they love him, and the children will watch often from the windows lest he tread the shadowy lawns unseen. She told Ariel that he was shyer than a fawn, swift to hide and dart away as any vole. A footstep on a twig and he is away, and his fluting will come mocking from afar. And a marvel of wizardry liveth in that fluting, said Ariel. If that if it that it be indeed which I have heard now for 2 nights here. There be none, said Rary, not even of the Solson Pipi, that's the Falmari, the sea elves, who can rival him, albeit those same pipers claim him as their kin. Yet 'tis said everywhere that this quaint spirit is neither wholly of the Valar nor of the Eldar, but is a half fey of the woods and dells, one of the great companies of the children of Pelurian, and half a gnome or shoreland piper. Howsoever that be, he is a wondrous wise and strange creature, and he fared hither away with the Eldar long ago, marching nor resting among them, but going always ahead, piping strangely or while sitting aloof. Now does he play about the gardens of the land, but Al, Alminore, that means land of elves, where the the cottage of Wasplay is set in the story. He loves best, and this garden best of all. Ever and again we miss his piping for long months, and we say, Tin Fang Warble has gone heartbreaking in the great lands, and many a one in those far regions will hear his piping in the dusk outside tonight. But on a sudden his flute will be heard again at the hour of gentle gloaming, or he will play beneath a goodly moon, and the stars go bright and blue. Ay, said Ariel, and the hearts of those that hear him go beating with a quickened longing. Meseemed 'twas my desire to open the window and leap forth, so sweet was the air that came to me from without. Nor might I drink deep enough, but as I listened, I wished to follow I know not whom, I know not whither, out into the magic of the world beneath the stars. Then of a sooth it was Tim Pennon who played to you, said Gregory. And honored are you, for this garden has been empty of his melody many a night. Now, however, for such is the eeriness of that sprite, you will ever love the evenings of summer and the nights of stars, and their magic will cause your heart to ache unquenchably. As can be seen from this passage, Tin Fangelion is what would probably term the member of the summer court who visit mortal lands in summertime. He departs before the leaves begin to fall in the autumn, as is specifically mentioned in one of Ariel's accounts. Now in the days soon after the telling of this tale, Gilfanon's tale, behold, winter approached the land of tall Erisea, and the lawns and gardens drew on a sparkling mantle of white snows. Their fountains were still, and all their bare trees silent, and the far sun glinted pale amid the mist or splintered upon facets of long-hanging ice. Still fared Ariel not away, but watched the cold moon from the frosty skies look down upon Mar Vanuatieliva. And when above the roots the stars gleamed blue, he would listen. And I've italicized this part because it tells about when the Tin Fangelion is not there. Yet no sound of the flutes of Tin Pennon heard he now, for the breath of summer is that sprite. And wherever the autumn's secret presence fills the air, he takes his gray magic boat, and the swallows draw him far away.
Wow.
No, or ever is an Arctic way of saying before ever. So before ever autumn's secret presence fills the air, he takes his gray magic boat, and the swallows draw him far away.
Wow.
And the end
so
here.
So exciting.
And the end here. For these main reasons, then, the appearance of the moon and stars in the vernal equinox, the association of Tin Fangelion with the summer season, and the linguistic and calendrical evidence from the Lord of the Rings Appendix D, we think that March 28th on the Gregorian calendar is the optimal date for Ystari. Shift it by even a week or so in either direction, and the feeling in the months begins to seem off, and conflicts with legendarium data will occur if that offset is taken too far. Setting a definite date for Ystari causes all of the month names to naturally fall into place. This concludes my rationale and explanation of the underlying reasons for our Elven month name table and choices. So there you are.
That's brilliant, Dave. It's so exciting. So these are a list. I'll just run through the video. These are the footnotes that you can read, and if you're a patron, you can read these in detail along with all of the links and the mathematics and, all of the things that happened. So I am confident that Dave has figured out every single, angle to this and has chosen the best one from the ground up, literally from the ground up. And we didn't even need all of this work done. Like, we could have just said, hey, we'll just, when the Gregorian month is this, we'll do this. We could have done that. But it would just, what, Dave is about quality, and I really dig that. Okay.
When I get my teeth into something, I don't let go.
Yes. Yes, indeed. So I'm gonna stop sharing this now. I'll leave it on the system here, and I guess that I have to read what. Draco wishes to add, the hoot. How he trillips on his flute. The hoot of Ting Fang Warble. Dancing all alone, hopping on a stone, flitting like a fawn in the twilight on the lawn. And his name is Ting Fang Warble. The first star has shone, and its lamp is blown to a flame of flickering blue. He pipes not to me, he pipes not to thee. He whistles for none of you. His music is his own, the tunes of Ting Fang Warble. That's awesome, Draco.
For whatever reason, when I first read that, back in the 80s or early 90s, I imagined it set to Pink Floyd music, so probably
Yeah.
Token didn't have that in mind.
I
but
wanted to
did.
say that I just noticed that Elbereth is in the room. Excellent. I'm so glad it must be so late for you. Draco says, reminds me of the flutes of Pan. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. So, okay. So when Dave and I were talking about this subtlety, because, we had been working with a calendar now for some 15 years, right? And we did do a subtle change back in April of 2021 when Dave first started doing this research in order to get independent of the Encyclopedia of Arda, but we still had the problem of what to do with the extra moon. So early on, when we were figuring out what to do, we didn't realize that there was a way for it to be even more elven than it is now, meaning from this point forth. So what we did was we said, oh, well, what did other, like maybe neo-pagan calendars do with this energy? And what they usually did was they assigned that moon to the Fae beings. So we're like, oh, the Fae beings exist in the Lost Tales 1, and so we can do that, and then we don't really have a moon dedicated to the Maiar. So what we did was we used Isil Maiaron, and then we added the energies of the Fae beings to the Isil Maiaron. Here's the thing. We hardly ever see that second moon, so we don't get really a lot of chance yearly the way that we get to visit everything else yearly. And for Nienna, we get to visit her twice, and I'll tell you about that in a moment. So what we decided to do was, okay, are you guys ready? Here's what we're doing. The extra moon is now going to be assigned to the flame imperishable. And the reason that we decided to assign it that way is because in the Legendarium, it talks about how the flame imperishable is always behind all things. So no matter how irregular the cycles get, the flame imperishable is there. And so we have a lot of moons that already resonate with fire, Isil Nariae, we have Isil Narviniae, Isil Narqualiae. So we resonate with the fire a lot. So we thought, okay, this will work because we're not ignoring, fire as an aspect, but we can still acknowledge that the flame imperishable is behind everything. Now, we had some trickery with getting an Elvish word for that. And so we did manufacture a word for the moon of the flame imperishable, and it is pronounced, are you guys ready? Isil Nar-Oyale. Okay, it's written out. I'm going to be changing the website where the calendar part is. Isil Maiaron will become Isil Nar-Oyale for the flame imperishable. Now, you're probably going, wait, what are we going to do with the fairies? How are we going to resonate with the fairies? And how are we going to resonate with the Maiar? Because we can't just get rid of them. Okay, not after all these years. When Dave found this story, we decided that we're going to align the fairies. So we still have Vana because she has a very May Queen kind of energy, like for, if you will, Elven Beltane, right? And the Summer Court of Fairies. So we are now aligning the fairy beings that Tolkien talks about in the Lost Tales, including Ting Fang, with Nos Na Lothion. And so that will be the season, and Vana will have like oversight of that season along with the sun energy. Okay, the sun Anar, because it's at that height of the year, it'll oversee the season. But Nos Na Lothion will be specific for the fairies as well as Vana. Okay, now the reason that we decided to do it that way is because in the fading time, when Orome is happening, Orome happens to be the horned god energy, which happens to be in the legendarium Vana's spouse. It works out perfectly. Okay, now as far as the Maiar, we had decided to put the Maiar in with the Ainur in the Moon of Heat in August, so that we can resonate with all of the elven cosmology, and this way we get to honor the Maiar once a year instead of like when it's random and we don't even do it. Okay, we talk about the flame imperishable every ritual that we do, so it just so happens that we'll have extra emphasis when it is 2 moons that are in the same month. And if you want to know what the months are, those are already updated. We've been using that calendar now since April of 2021. We finally got to do a video for you guys to tell you why, but then it's really great when Dave finds more evidence about what to do. And so this latest piece of how the 13th moon is handled actually happened this week. I just wanted to let all of you guys know about that. So I'll be changing that part of that document, as well as the memes and some of the other things like that will come forth from this time forward. So isn't it interesting? We're in March, right at the beginning of the new cycle, right? So you guys, are you excited about this change? I am. I wanted to, one of the things that I was thinking about recently was how, man, we haven't had a moon for the Fae in a really long time. Like it's been years, right? Because the Elven calendar, even when it was the Encyclopedia of Arda, it didn't have the double moons the way that the Gregorian calendar does. And now we're going to have even less of them because of the way that Dave divided the year so evenly. And so it'll be a more rare occurrence when that happens. So we are really excited to now integrate these energies every year and at the time that it actually matters. For instance, with the Summer Court of Fairies, Nos Na Lothion, the Elven Beltane, the Elven beginning of summer, okay, is the way to go. And we are just super excited about that. Let me see what Draco says. He says, Dave, awesome job. Yeah, that's what I say too.
Oh, thanks.
And he also adds, in the earliest version, Ting Fang is actually called a Lepron.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Draco. That'll be a future announcement, but we're definitely having. We love having Draco's assistance with not only the Legendarium lore, but other areas of lore, and along with Dakindre's lore expertise in areas, like outside of the Legendarium also. We're going to have like the world class, because with Dakindre, he's also taking lessons from Morgan Daimler, who is like the fairy lore like expert of her time. I mean, it's just great that we have her. She's such a treasure. And, we are going to have like the best lore masters on the job. And I'll just be the face of, Tia Eldaleva, and you guys will just be all of the background, like doing all of the research and, the hermit and everything. And I'll just be over here, like being the face of Tia Eldaleva, the Elven spiritual path. So I wanted to see if anybody has any questions, or if they have any comments. Are they excited like I am? Like, I'm excited. I am so like, yay, we get to make. So I'm gonna see if I need to make a new eSeal. No, not eSeal. The No Sna Lothione. Right now I have it looking like flowers, and it looks a little bit too much like the Moon of Flowers.
Hmm.
Now I get to add the fairies to that.
Right.
I'm so excited. I get to do the memes again, you guys, and we're doing it just in time because we are starting in the month of Sulime, and it's going to be like I'm going to be changing that as we go, and I'm going to be modifying the online calendar. And Dave, one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about was we have a document that is when you originally did the calendar. Will that need updates because of the work that you have just done here, or do you know yet?
You mean the one for the seasons? You mean?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
one?
yeah. I didn't
No,
know if
no,
that was going to change it.
no, that won't change.
Okay, brilliant. So we're going to just upload the new document for the moon names because that's what this is, and I just wanted to double check and make sure
The
that we were okay with that.
the only thing that would change, and this is if I can get the mathematics to work out in the spreadsheet background project that I'm doing. Well, I actually have a number of background projects, but this one to do with the calendars, it's based. You would, because for people who live further south, you may have noticed that these seasons were based on Tolkien was in Oxford as a professor, and that's up about 52 degrees north. So if you're down like around 34, 35 degrees north, like I am in North Georgia, the seasons don't exactly match up. Like the beginning of spring, here is March 28th, but to here that's almost transition into summer. So there is a way to do it based on your latitude, but that would be for your own personal use, like to make
I
things
see.
on it. It wouldn't change the dates for us as an organization, but it might change for the person who wants to observe them.
If they wish to observe their bioregional cycles,
right,
but there's also going to be people that are not going to want to do their bioregional. They're going to want to do the elven, energies as laid out by Tolkien. So even if they live in New Zealand, because they have, completely opposite seasons, but they may still want to resonate with Tuatha Rohalme in December because that's what the elves did. It's more of a connection to the elven rather than a connection to the bioregional. And I think that I still think that it's okay to do both. You can have a bioregional calendar and an elven calendar, and you can still honor both. You can do what you got to do. We totally get that, it's Christmas, and, they have Christmas in Australia in the summertime. They have, they have, summer holidays in the winter, like it just, they didn't do Christmas for the season. They did Christmas for the time of the year from the ancestors. Okay. So in this case, rather than ancestors, although, well, maybe some of us think that elves are ancestors, I'm okay with that. We can just have the elven resonance instead. And Muriel, who, by the way, is in Argentina and will come back to the States at some point soon, hopefully, says Christmas in summer sucks. I can imagine.
Just to give the people a really short synopsis of when I get to it, basically you use spherical geometry and the trigonometric functions to calculate the length of the day for each day of the year, depending on your latitude, whether that's north or south, and then it assigns a season for that. What I'm stuck in right now is not the concept. I'm stuck on an Excel way of choosing the closest value to the length of day without using an index. And Excel seems to want to index everything if you want to find the closest value. So
Oh,
I'm out there researching on Excel mathematics sites to figure out a way to do that. I mean, I may
oh
actually have to
wow.
have an index table, but hopefully I don't.
Okay, and so but this will be done for people who are also interested in a bioregional
Yeah, yeah,
way of
it's not.
acknowledging, particularly if they're in the northern hemisphere.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It won't change our official
It won't
dates.
change the elven calendar, but they
Right.
may like implement like their own seasonal for their own use. Yeah,
Right.
sure.
Like for
Yeah.
for for me here at a little less than 35 degrees north on about 34.9, uh my beginning of spring, my you know basically Yestare is tomorrow, actually, March 8th,
I see.
based on the
I
line
see.
today. So that I did that manually. I calculated it manually, but that's an idea of how it would change based on latitude. What happens is your summers get longer the further south you go,
Further south, yeah.
or
Mhm. Summer
closer
gets longer and the winters get like
right,
shorter. Yeah.
or
Mhm.
closer to the equator if you're in the southern hemisphere. The further
Yeah,
you move
right. Right.
further you move towards the equator, the summers get longer, the winters get shorter, and the other seasons get kind of compressed, so they get shorter too.
Yeah,
So,
right. Right. Yeah. And then you get close enough and you probably eliminate winter. Like it's just the same all year
yeah,
long,
well, yeah.
you know.
Once you get within the actual tropical zone that is between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, you actually are in the
Mhm.
tropics, and the seasons at that point
Yeah,
are basically virtual. So
right.
it doesn't matter what you chose. You what what the natives in tropical America did was they would base it more on like when certain fruits in the jungle were ripe at different times and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
that's how they would reckon. And in fact, in
And that's a good thing to know, like for nature, for people that are doing things with their nature. That's a good
right,
thing to
right,
have an eye on, so that like when the cycles happen. And I would say that the elves would approve, because the elves were very tied with nature, and so that is a very good thing, and we eagerly await that, Dave.
right.
Now, will we need a video on that also for our patrons, or will that
I can
just be an upload that we'll put in the
I can
back
make a
end for
video on
them?
it because
Okay.
especially the transition when you're actually in the tropical zone. I want to explain how I may even put things like calculating the rainy season and stuff, which is basically the difference between summer and winter within the tropics. You have a dry season and rainy season. I used to live in the tropics, so
Right.
I'm
Right.
quite
Because,
familiar
yeah, the
with it.
seasons are
Yeah.
defined kind of by the weather, like in
Right,
a sense, like, or
right,
wetness, like
right.
precipitation versus, and I can tell you that we did that in San Diego, where, it would be kind of the wet season, the dry
Hmm.
season, you
Right.
know, it's kind of divided this a similar way. So now I will tell you that a lot of people are very they're supportive and even very enthusiastic about the calendar, Dave. So
Oh, cool. Okay.
excellent
Mhm.
job. I didn't have to sell that, I imagine,
Mhm.
because Dave has done such a wonderful job. Um, so, okay, patrons, if you guys need the download documents, if you want to read the footnotes, etc., make sure that you message me or Dave on Messenger. We'll give you a Mega NZ link. Or if you log into your Patreon and go to the calendar video post, you'll see that I uploaded it as an attachment for you. And if you have trouble opening it, because it's in a zip file for you to download, one of us can get you like the full document, like if that's
Right.
what's necessary.
Mhm.
Draco also says author Philip, hang on, let me open up the square here. Authors Philip and Carol Zaleski, or maybe it's Zaleski, recount that Tolkien, in response to an undergraduate's query about the truth of dragons and other legends, declared that behind such tales invariably lies something real. He then dug into his pockets and pulled out, along with a ball of string and other detritus, a small green shoe, thin and pointed in the toe, made of a leathery substance that felt like reptile skin, and declared it, quote, stoutly and with apparent sincerity, unquote, to be a leprechaun's shoe. Lepron relates to leprechaun.
I remember that story. Yeah.
Yeah.
I read that before.
Yeah, and actually, it's kind of interesting that that shape of shoe, it actually has a special name, and it runs around in the Ren fairs and other things, like that style of shoe that, you know, has the points. So, okay, well, I think that we're gonna wrap up here soon. Want to make sure that there's no other questions. I'm gonna be getting on the, you know, meme making, and I'm going to change the website calendar so that we have the 13th moon now resonating with the flame imperishable, and I'm changing the meanings of the moons to reflect what we talked about on this video. And I may even link the video on the page so that you guys don't have to like look around for it if you happen to be in your resources page on the calendar. And, you know, if you need to refer back to this for any reason, we can also, you know, allow for the document to, you know, be available for you guys. So I just wanted to, you know, let you guys know about that. And because we have basically mostly patrons here, I won't wrap up until I let you know we're going to be having an annual meeting soon. And one of the things that was brought up by one of our like really cool patrons was they wanted a day, like maybe once a month, like that is not when we're doing ritual, not when we're, you know, doing things, but like more of a social time for us to hang out and get to know each other. And I thought that that was a really great idea. And we are looking at Google Meet as a function for that because it seems to be easier than Zoom and, you know, even StreamYard and, you know, some other things for people. And we were considering it being like maybe like the first Saturday or Sunday every month, something like that, and making it in the daytime so that our European people can participate. But like if we get any people that are in Australia or New Zealand in the future, because we don't have any yet that are patrons, but in the future we can like make that daytime a little bit different so that they could even participate, because, you know, like when it gets towards afternoon, evening, they can participate because they are, you know, getting up in the morning and over there, morning. Right? And it's the next day, but it still works. So, but right now, all of our folks are in, if you will, the Western Hemisphere. It's mostly Europe. And as far as it gets, to my knowing, is like, you know, the Estonia and like that realm. And I'm not even sure if that, because I believe that that person will be leaving at that point and coming to Canada. So we're not even sure, like we may have everybody kind of. And so we looked at time zones for most of you, and most of you are on Central and Eastern time zone in the United States. And so we have a few in Europe. Elbereth is here with us today. Oh, Jennifer said, "Hey, hello, late. Love the social idea. Brilliant." Okay, so we're thinking about that. It would either be the first or second, not sure yet, but like either a Saturday or a Sunday, and it would be during the daytime, and it would be once a month. Okay, or, you know, somewhere around that part where we have more social time and just to hang out, and we get our tea and just chit chat and, you know, and have, you know, where we have our video and we can see each other and, you know, stuff like that.
The advantage of using Google Meet is that you don't need any special client. You just use your browser, and everything will work.
And it works really great. We're going to actually be having our administration meeting for our nonprofit doing that. We're having a board meeting pretty soon because guess what? It's March, and we need to have our meeting before we do, because we are a nonprofit, and so we have to go from calendar year to calendar year, and we have chosen for the calendar year to be on March 28th to March 27th to match the Elven calendar. So we need to have our administration meeting, our annual meeting, if you will, like our board member, and it's like a lot of it's administrative, although we will probably, cross fingers, have a really exciting announcement after that's done. But I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a teaser that we are considering creating a social hour like social, maybe 2 hours, something like that, like where we get to know each other and a little bit better, and talk about like what brought us to this path, like what we're studying. And also, because you guys, I have your attention, Il Salunte Valion's administrator of the forum, Luthien, is a genius, and she's actually created an Elvish app. She needs some testers. Who wants to test out the app? Okay, like this is going to be so cool. So she needs people with Android phones as well as iPhones so that she can help test. So if you guys are interested in that, get a hold of me or Dave, or if you happen to know Luthien herself, shoot a note to her. But if you don't, like, we'll connect you with her somehow if you guys want to test out the Elvish app. And question, Dave, do you know if that's for both Quenya and Sindarin, or is it only for Quenya or only for Sindarin?
Her original one was just for Sindarin, but I think this one is for both languages, as far as I know.
Excellent. Oh my gosh, really? Okay, so Daughter of Magic says, oh me. Okay, Mariel McKenzie says, I want to test it. And Jennifer says, me. Okay, like Mariel's like, and Elbereth says, yes. Okay, so she's got some testers now. Oh, wow, this is fabulous. Okay, guys, reach out to me on either Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is that you guys get a hold of me. I will make sure that you guys are in touch with Luthien and that she can give you a test version of the app. I'm very excited about what she has. Okay. I'm very excited. Very excited. So, yeah, just let me know. Okay. And we'll get you in touch with Luthien. She'll get you the app, and she needs it tested on both Androids and iPhones. Okay. Now, Dave, do you know if it could be tested on a computer? Like, is there a Windows version or
I don't think she's making it for.
Okay, I was curious. I was curious.
Although, right now, if somebody did want to run it on a desktop, they could run it in an Android emulator, for example.
Okay.
Like BlueStacks or one of those.
Okay, yeah, if they really want to, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Okay. Vera says she wants to test it too. Oh my gosh, there's so many people that want it. And by the way, Draco and Nimue also want to test it. And one of them has an iPhone and the other one has an Android. So how perfect is that?
Oh, okay, cool.
Okay, and Jennifer, has texted me on. So we're already like, she's gonna have her wish. I told her I would talk to people about it. I thought, I'll just do it on the video tonight. So this is awesome. You guys are fabulous. And I'm going to let you have your evening back, especially you guys on the East Coast, and especially Elbereth, who's coming from France tonight. You guys, it's probably really late over there. So
does
6,
anyone?
7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, it's like 1, 2 in the morning over there. So we're going to definitely let you, go to bed at some point. What was that, Dave?
I was going to ask, does anyone have any final questions or suggestions about the calendar that you might want to ask? Well, we're all
while we're here, I think everybody likes it, to be honest with you. And especially, I know that we have a lot of people that resonate Oh, he says it's almost 3 in the morning. Oh
No.
my goodness. We are going to let you go and have some sleep, Elbereth. My goodness. I think that they're as excited as I am because we're actually going to be able to resonate with the Fae again. Because right now, you know, the way that it is right now, like we just never get to do it, and it never
Right.
comes up, and it's always the next month, and it's like, snap, you know, like
Well,
we don't get to do it, but
well,
this
that's
time
why
we're gonna get to do it at Nos Na Lothion, and every year after this, because that's when the summer court arrives, and it's so perfect.
Yeah, and the reason we don't have a time set aside to honor the winter court, or whatever the proper name is. I'm not a Fae expert, but it is simply because the summer fairies are mentioned in the Legendarium and the winter ones aren't. Although, you know,
That's
they
right.
exist, it's just
That's
they're not
right.
mentioned. So, yeah.
That's right. And even like, so I know that a lot of people kind of think that Tom Bombadil might be kind of a fairy type, and Goldberry. And even they have a very summery resonance about them.
Right.
Like, you know, the ones in the Lord of the Rings, and,
Right.
you know, we don't really know what he is. You know, there's speculation. But even if we were to speculate that he was part of the Fae, I would still classify that with the summer
Right.
energies, not the winter energies. That I agree with you, Dave. I have not seen any examples of the winter type Fae energies. Okay, Draco says he would classify Bombadil as a land wight, Wight, which happens to be the spirit of a place. I would say that is very resonant. Right. Yeah. Oh, I could see that. But it's still, it's not a winter fairy.
Right.
I guess that's where we were going. And we do not know of any examples of winter fairies in the Legendarium. Now, we're not saying that winter fairies don't exist, but since we are a Legendarium calendar, you know, like, and that's what we follow, we'll have the fairies, the summer court, honored in the summer, because it's brought up in the tales. But it's but the leaving of them is brought up in the tales. Very interesting. But we don't know who's coming in the winter and who's leaving in the winter. Like, it doesn't talk about it. And interestingly, I think that it's very interesting that Tolkien never made a winter holiday. He had all the other holidays, but didn't have a winter holiday. We had to create that with Qui Verre Quendiva.
Right. Well, not the start of winter holiday. Turalme at Yule was there.
That's what I'm saying. It's like he didn't make one for, you know, out of the 7 holidays. Like, you know, that's the only quote naked place in the Legendarium calendar. Is that time when the winter actually starts, because again, the summer and the winter, they're the longest seasons. So the start of winter actually happens well before, you know, the Turalme. Right. You know, it's quite a bit. I mean, it's about a month, right? It's quite a bit of time. So anyways, I just thought I would mention that. So I guess we will let Elbereth get going. Boy, you need some sleep. It's almost 3 in the morning there. My goodness. Vera says she has an apple. Okay, great. There is so many people. Message me on either Facebook, okay, Instagram, email, like whatever it takes. Okay, you guys, I won't remember from this necessarily. So make sure you get a hold of me and I will connect you with Luthien in some fashion. Okay. So Sarah Wall says, theoretically, you could incorporate each of the courts into each seasonal moon, i.e. the summer court, winter court, autumn court, etc., in a personal practice. That is true. Yes, we would not do that as an overarching because it's not in the Legendarium. But absolutely, for your personal practice, that is absolutely okay. That is great. That is a great idea. That's a great plan, Sarah. Thank you for your input. That's great. And we do have it's a little bit different, of course, than the seasons that are in, like, say, for instance, the pagan calendar, because that's on, equinoxes, and then in between the equinox, and the solstices, like that. So it's eightfold exactly. Okay. We have 8 holidays too, but they're expanded when it comes to summer and winter. Okay. So you could make it work by the seasonal shifts in the Elven calendar, and still have it work for your own personal practice if you do work with energies of the winter or autumn, etc. So that would be fine. So absolute. Okay, Elbereth. Yeah. So we're gonna let some people go here and get some shut eye. Okay. Thank you guys so much for coming on. I'm sorry that I noticed you guys a little bit late on the messenger. I have been doing my taxes. Okay, so I was getting all of my stuff like written up, and I lost track of time. And usually I like to get you guys the link right when, right before we go on. And today I did it right when we went on. And thank you, Dave, for letting me know what time it was. Anyways, it worked out though. You guys are great. Okay. And also, if you guys want the download of the documents and you can't access it on Patreon, I'll get you, or Dave, either one of us, will get you the Mega NZ download link so that you can get so you can have the documents. Okay. So we will get going tonight. We have Laita, many blessings, Namaste. And we'll see you on the next video. We'll probably be having one not only for the Isil Sulime with Manwe, but we'll also be having another teaching moment. We're going to be talking about what qualifies as a cult. We have some resources to share with you guys about that, because we've actually had some people think that we were a cult, and so we're going to be talking about that. By the way, most people who might accuse us of being a cult, they might be a cult and doing what we call projection in psychology, right?
Well, Richard Parker wouldn't say it. Not only might be, they damn well is. Richard Parker is my tiger spirit.
Yeah. It's so great. We have, it's like the Elven path, and we have like a pet. That would be Dave, right?
Yeah.
It's like a familiar, but like it's even better, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So Mariel says, "Oh wow, interesting." So yeah, we have some interest in that. So we're going to talk about what makes a cult, what defines that, and Draco has a link for us to look at. Leprechaun is not a native Irish word, new dictionary reveals. Very interesting, and this is from the BBC. Oh wow! I wonder if Morgan Daimler has that link. I'll have to look at that.
What is the source?
He says leprechaun derives from Luperci, priests of Lupercalia, according to this. Oh wow!
In ancient Rome. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, that would be Lupercalia would be Rome, and a lot of stuff. They stole a lot of stuff from the Greeks. Okay, so. According to that, wolf/canine connection there, and it reminds me of Orome. Exactly. That's why we decided to have it be where, if the summer fairies leave, they leave at Enderi when the elves travel, and also the court leaves, and it talks about that in the story quote that Dave gave tonight. So. I think that it's so resonant though, because Orome and Vanna are actually a couple in the Legendarium, and it totally folds right in. It's just awesome. So, okay, guys, I'm gonna look for your messages, and until then, Namaste, Laita, many blessings to all of you. Sarah says LMAO, laughing my ass off. Excellent. You guys have a wonderful evening. Thank you for coming and thank you for being our patrons. We really appreciate it. You guys take care, okay? Oh, Draco, I think one more thing he wants to say. He went before the Eldar on their journey west and they followed the pipings. Orome can be seen almost like a brother of Pan. Oh, I would agree with that. And I also see
Right.
a horned god resonance with him. So that's just how I see Orome. So I'm gonna sign off for real. Okay, we're gonna sign off right now. Okay, you guys have a wonderful evening. Laita, many blessings. Good night.
Goodbye.